Welcome to Don't Fuck This Up, the podcast answering the ultimate question, how the fuck did you land that cool job? I'm your host, Lauren Alvarez. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Don't Fuck This Up. I'm so happy to introduce our guest today. She's the owner of Lost Hills LA, a hairstylist, educator, and the founder of TOSL haircare. It's Kate Schlichter. Kate, welcome to Don't Fuck This Up.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to chat with you. I feel like you have just such natural, amazing energy. I feel like the first time I met you, I felt like I knew you for 10 years. It was wild. I don't know if that was just we have a special connection or if it's just how you are with everybody, but I'll pretend it's because I'm special.
I felt the same way when I met you.
Oh
After talking to you for 3 minutes, I was like, I know you. We've been friends forever.
Forever. Totally. I mean, before we get into everything, how are you doing? How's it going?
I'm good. I just got back from Hawaii, so I feel relaxed and refreshed. And how are you?
Oh my gosh, thanks for asking. I'm good. This rain in LA had me kind of weirded out.
Now the sun's shining.
Now the sun's shining and it's haha. Yeah. But no, I'm good. Yeah. Well, I mean, really happy to have you here. Would love to talk about, being a business owner. I know that you're starting a line, which is so exciting. I mean, you're an educator. There's so much that you do. I mean, one thing that I absolutely love is that your work has this really rock and roll kind of editorial feel, but it also feels so approachable. So, I mean, how would you describe kind of your approach to the craft? Because hair is so deeply personal.
I feel I guess I have a really strong background in training. I was trained from Sassoon, which was really hard and very strict. And then I went into this training from Bumble, which was kind of the opposite and really loose and soft. So I feel like I can kind of bring a couple different elements to the haircut, and it's always tailored to the person. I really feel when I'm cutting somebody's hair, I know that kind of sounds silly, but I feel so much when I just am talking to the person and I try to really get out of them who they are. Because I just want that haircut to be tailored to them,
Totally. It's like the accessory we can't take off. I mean, it really can impact so much of how people perceive you, how you feel showing up in situations. And I feel like having a great haircut, you would instantly feel more confident, feel sexier. You're okay, I'm in my bag. So that transformation, you get to give that to people all the time. What an amazing career.
It feels so good. I love it. I'm so happy that I get to do this job. And I've been doing it for, since 1998 or something. So
yeah.
I feel like I can really I try, so hard to get a read for the person and what they really want, which I'm sure most people do, when you have your consultation and whatnot. But
yeah. Well, let's get in the time machine and go back to when you started hair, and it was a really different time. There wasn't social media, especially not what we think of social media today. What were some of the influences that led you to wanting to get into doing hair in the first place?
Yeah, I grew up in a kind of this cool town. I think it's Olympia, Washington. And there I was really into music, the music scene, and watching my friends. Most of my friends and people out and about in the town were really creative people and cut their own hair and bleach their own hair. And I started doing that for them or for myself. And I loved it so much. And I knew from a really young age, this is what I was going to do. So I'm lucky that my parents were so supportive of me and sent me to Sassoon in London. So that's where amazing. I first started, and I was 17, just barely 18. And I was also really into the British music scene, and I loved all the Britpop and all the looks. And totally. I definitely got most of my inspiration at that time just going out, clubbing and going to shows and all my books and magazines.
Yeah. It's interesting because that time too, Tony and Guy was such a prominent force in the, British hair scene, and they were kind of doing their whole thing way before bedhead was a thing.
Oh, totally.
Totally. What were some of the most, would you say to you iconic haircuts that were damn, I want to do that on somebody? What stands out to you when you think about it?
Oh, well, since I was so in that like Sassoon world, just like really short and blunt and the hardest haircut that I could possibly give, or like really teeny
Yes.
tiny bangs and then long, because it was kind of getting to that early 2000s too, of that electro
Yeah.
clash kind of era.
I love
A lot of
that.
like disconnection, and sometimes I'll look back at some of the haircuts. I was like, what? Or even the ones that I had on my own head.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
I also like came up in the editorial space and it would always be like, "Oh, would you have time to cut my hair like after this shoot?" And I mean, I was like, "Why can't I grow my hair out?" It's like cuz I keep hacking it off every time
Because
somebody
we
has
keep
an extra
having,
hour. Yeah, cuz I keep saying like, "What would I look like with a pixie?" And someone's like, "Let me give you one."
let me give it to you.
Yeah,
Totally.
totally. I
Yeah.
remember, there was definitely like some of those like really iconic haircuts that stand out, like when I think about them. And I remember one in particular, like, do you remember Shannon Sossaman? She was in The Rules of Attraction and she had this like
Oh, yeah.
sick, like really disconnected haircut. And I decided I would give myself that haircut. This is like very early 2000s. It didn't work. First
Amazing.
of all, like I'm not a hairstylist, but I got some thinning shears at like Sally's and I like really went in. And what I ended up with
Sally.
was like two long rectile sideburns basically that were like, if you
Yeah.
glued pieces of hair to the side of your head. It was just kind of framing there. Didn't look like Shannon Sossaman, didn't have the same effect, but I mean,
But
I
you
thought it looked good.
tried.
I tried, but
And
I
you thought,
tried.
and you probably did look good.
I mean, nobody stopped being my friend, so we'll put it that way, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
Uh,
Sassoon in London is like such a hallmark of hair. And you think about, style and like that super blunt, bitchy bob, like you said, like just so almost exaggerated in how perfect everything was. And then you talked about Bumble, and you're right. It was softer. It was like this tousled, kind of languid, like sexy look. Was that like a complete brain bend for you when you moved into doing that type of hair? Or how long was it kind of between Sassoon and then going to Bumble in New York?
yeah, I think that like, so I went from London to San Francisco for a few years and still worked at Sassoon. And then
Oh,
I kind
cool.
of started hearing about Bumble and Bumble, and I would go. I ended up starting to work at this salon called Architects and Heroes that were kind of friends of Bumble and carry their products. And we
Yeah.
had some educators come out, and I was like, what is this? I can't do that. I need to know how, because I always wanted to learn how to do as much as I could. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really hard for me at first, especially when I moved there in I think 2003
Yeah.
or something like that, and it was just starting over again. And I would be like looking at people cutting hair, just so confused. And what is that? What are you doing? Um, and then I figured it out, and it was amazing. And I
Yeah.
think that the two together really make the best.
Yeah, like having that like kind of juxtaposition and like being able to hold the tension between those two skill sets. And I think Bumble, was it like a lot of razor cutting, like that kind of like softness, or was that like the first time that you did
Yes.
that? Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
So
Yes.
like
Yeah. It's
really
all, and
different.
so we're at Sassoon. You only can use a scissor, and you can't even use a round brush. And then you go to this place where they're using like anything, but
Yeah.
mainly this razor, and, taking out weight from like the root and making these really crazy, incredible shapes, with this like razor. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But knowing like, what I know now is that everything was based on these classic shapes. And then after you learn how to do all of that classic work, going through
Learn
and
how to
using
fuck it
this
up.
softer tool. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love
Yeah.
that. I mean, was there anything, because like learning anything new is can be intimidating, but also when you're cutting someone's hair, it's kind of, I guess it's like also like learning to do surgery. It's like you're doing this on a real person. Yes, there's mannequins, but it's not the same. So do you have any standout memories of like, oh my gosh, I really butchered this one? Okay, you're nodding. What
Oh,
comes to
yeah, of
mind? Sorry,
course.
did I bring you back to your trauma? I'm sorry.
No, you know what? I talk about it a lot when I teach because those moments really made me who I am right now and today. And I actually will say I've never even really, I've never taught on a mannequin, and I've never trained on a mannequin. So it's always been live models, unless I'm learning to braid and like I have that mannequin doll, to braid on. But yeah, one moment stands out to me, and I think about this teacher all the time. It was, I had to do this haircut called an inside out, and you start from the front, and it's a cute little graduated bob, and I did such a good job. And he's like, do it on the other side. And then I totally cut it too short on one side. It was like 2 inches different. But that and my training did help me for the rest of my life because I think about balance so much
Yeah.
and I had to mess up. And my teacher knew that too. Like you had to make those mistakes in order to be good,
Yeah, because
to
also
learn.
like if you're good at it all the time, then what's your litmus? It's like, good, and you're obviously going to get better if you keep practicing at something. So eventually the thing that you thought was good, you have to start somewhere, right? And I think also
Right.
like, so what happens when you have like a live model and you're cutting their hair and you're like, whoopsies, does your instructor jump in?
Yeah, usually
Okay.
well, first of all, you have to, it's a really also a good skill at learning how to keep yourself together and have
Yeah.
that face on, I'll be right back. You're tucking one
Yeah.
side behind the ear or something like this. And then, yeah, like for that haircut particularly, I mean, I was in my early training. So my teacher came in and most of these people that come for haircuts, they understand and they have like some sort of leeway. I mean, I've never made anybody cry or anything like that.
Oh my gosh,
So
no. Nobody. I mean, I feel like you have such a calming presence. Like there's no way. I feel like you could have like done something that they didn't have in mind and they're like, I love it. Like it's a new style. We just started something new. You got a shorter haircut than you asked for. I mean, that's so interesting. Like going to New York too during that time, I feel like there was so much momentum in that space. Did you start taking on projects outside of the salon space while you're, working with Bumble? Were you working on any editorial, things like that? Or was it mostly concentrated in that salon and education environment?
Yeah, so well, outside of work, I was definitely having an entire other life. Like I really went
Yes.
out and I was like really in the music scene. But as far as hair, I did some fashion week, some editorial, but my main focus has always been education and teaching.
Yeah.
So at Bumble, I really got deep into the education there. And my favorite part was teaching the apprentices. So that's when they start out from right out of beauty school. And that's what I really dove deep into.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I mean,
love teaching and I still do.
yeah, and I was going to say because I got excited. I mean, I think that apprenticeship is something that like is kind of it feels like it's a dying art. I mean, there's very few industries that really even require apprenticeship. I mean, even tattooing, which I thought for sure would be like the last one to fall. I mean, you see all these folks who are starting up on Instagram and they're, generating a lot of followers and they're doing things they're self-taught. I mean, it sounds like you really believe in apprenticeship. Like I really see a lot of value in it and, being a mentor as well. What can you say about kind of like your thoughts on apprenticeship and how that model's evolved now?
I think it's priceless, an apprenticeship. I really do. In fact, when I was living in New York, I was helping this other friend, her name's Sarah, to start a school called Trade Up to bring like apprenticeships and trade school back to high school because it was such a big part of, it used to be such a big part of our
Yeah.
you know, education. But I think that apprentice is the way to go if you're going to do hair. I think it's priceless. I mean, you can definitely have natural talent and just be able to do a haircut, but the longevity of your work and, the complexity of everything can, and also it makes your craft less boring, I think. If you
Yes.
just start out and you're like, I know everything, how long can you sustain that?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
learned
and
so much through
there's
my apprenticeship.
Yeah, and there's also like that thought of like, is it Osho that talks about like the 10,000 hours to become like a master of your craft? I mean, putting in those hours, putting in those reps. I mean, you can't go to the gym one day and be like, well, I should be in the Olympics. I'm pretty great. It's like you have to train.
You have to train, and it's like, I think there was some quote at Bumble, like, it takes this long to do this. I can't remember it right now, but then it's like, but a lifetime you know, to really do it. And it's true. It's like I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still am learning all the time. And thank God, because otherwise I'd be bored,
So, I
you
mean,
know?
yeah, it's so boring to like just say like, okay, well, I've learned everything there is to learn. But also in being an educator now, I'm guessing you're still learning from your students. Like you're giving them education, but you're seeing them do things or maybe approach something in a way that you might not have. Is that the case?
Absolutely, 100%. That's another reason why I always will continue to teach. And I even started teaching when I was like fresh kind of out of school. And that helped me become a better hairstylist. And now that I've been doing this for so long, teaching keeps me on my toes and keeps me seeing what the young kids are doing or whatever. It's great. And sometimes we kind of will work out things together on a model, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I never thought of that. That's how I like to teach. You know, I really like to make it for both of us, you know,
Yeah, it's got to be collaborative. And I think it also like there's
collaborative.
a
Sorry.
certain, no, I think that's perfect. And like there's a certain energy that like you get from other people when they're taking in what you're saying, but perhaps getting to it. Like I use the example of like, if you take an Uber to get there and I, walk and someone else rides a bike and shows up and we all get there on time, we look hot. Like that's great. Then we did it. Right. And I think that that's kind of like the way that I like to approach it when I'm thinking about education or craft or learning is just like somebody else might have a different way of getting there. And I'm not going to tell you that my way is the perfect way, but I'm going to say, here's a guideline. And if you want to fuck with the guideline, fuck with the guideline.
Right, absolutely. And also it's like at the end of the day, it's going to set you apart from another hairstylist. Like we can all like learn the exact same, foundation of things, but the way that you do it is just going to set you apart a little bit. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I really like that. You talk a lot about music being like an influence for you. Do you feel like there's like still, I loved music videos. I spent so much time watching music videos. I spent so much time going to see bands play. I would drive all over the East Coast to go see different bands play. Do you feel like now with kind of the way things have shifted, we're not in like a music video culture the same way we used to be? Does hair still have that same impact and influence in those spaces, or is it showing up in a different way?
I think it does. I mean, because I think like the music video, I will always go back to all my music videos. I love that
Yes.
you can get like 120 minutes on YouTube and things like this. And I love getting the inspiration from that. I think that the new generation are doing their own kind of music videos with using TikTok and all of these, things.
Yeah.
But I think that I still get inspired by that. Yeah.
It's so much about like how people interpret like what they're seeing. Cause like you and I have different eyes and different brains. We could be in the same space looking at the same wall and see something totally different. Right. And like that's the beauty of
Absolutely. Yeah.
like hair. That's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of like everything. And something that like shakes you to your core might not have any effect on me at all. And it is so interesting how like that is kind of that perfect moment of like pop culture or of that moment is like, does this thing make me feel anything? And it's like,
Right.
that
And that's
is,
the thing.
yeah. And when you're creative, like that's all you could ask for is like, do I feel something from this?
Oh yeah, totally. And that's why I'm still trying to grab all my inspiration from everything. And sometimes even, like looking at the hair this weekend at the Grammys or something, there was definitely things I was like, yikes. But
Yeah.
like this new, yeah,
Yeah.
the new kids, they maybe they think that looks good. I don't know. But even seeing that kind of thing, it totally like re-energizes me in this way
Yeah.
to be like, why is this happening? What's going on out there? What are their references that they're using? Why don't I think that looks good, but that they do or something,
Yeah. Totally. And I think like, well, one thing that I think is really cool is like also, you're a parent as well. And I always think about this, like even with my little guy, I'm like, how, he's going to see stuff or do stuff that I'm going to think is so weird. And I feel like I'm like one breath away from like being totally irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Totally.
see
Oh
the
yeah.
reference, but like it is really interesting from like that lens as a parent, at least like I've seen, and I'd love to hear like your experience of like, they see the world with like different eyes. And it's like, you start to see things again for the first time. Like it's such an amazing experience and it's kind of humbling
It's
too.
oh, absolutely. It's so beautiful to see through this new fresh set of eyes. And especially because my son is so different from me. Like his style is, he's 3, but
Yeah.
let's just, he's so different, and he has his own opinion, and he even has opinions on what sometimes I'll be like, do you like this look that I'm wearing? And he'll be like, oh, mama, no, or something. And even music, I'm trying to like show him the music, but I also want him to have his own choice. And a lot of the music that I like, he doesn't. And I think about him being a teenager, and I think about myself being young and like kind of arguing with my mom, who was so fashionable, and like she grew up in Liverpool in the 60s and was like hanging out with the Beatles.
Cool.
And I thought she was so not cool, and I would like looked at her style and I was like, ugh, Like, I could barely even look at a Beatles album without thinking of my mom. And now I'm like, wait, what? No, she was so cool. So I know what's
Yeah.
going to happen to me.
Eventually you'll be, if you're not cool now, eventually you will be cool. That's thematically true.
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
I
They
mean,
have to come back.
definitely. I mean, and I think also like with the way that they see things, like it's so funny. I have like two of my friends are amazing couple. They're super fashionable. She's like a former editorial makeup artist. Like she still, is just like super involved in the fashion world. They just dress amazing, like very rock and roll. And they have three kids, all girls. And the oldest one, they told me the story and I just died. The oldest one was like, they would always get these cool like niche and puff sweaters and just like all of the cool like fashion baby clothes. And she's like 9 and was like, Mom, have you ever heard of this store? It's called Old Navy. And my friend was like, what? And she's like, can we go there like on the internet? And she's like, sure. And she basically just wanted like to wear the most, I'll say basic kind of clothes because
Yeah,
that's what her friends were wearing. And I think that something died in my friend's heart. She was like, oh no,
totally.
like, yeah, but the other two are still all down with like the fashion moments. But like, yeah, Old Navy was the thing that made her daughter the most excited. And she's like, okay, Old Navy we
Okay.
go. Like, here we go.
Right. Yeah, you kind
Yeah.
of just have to give in, It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of great though, because I feel that we can kind of give them all the options and you just have to have that patience and just be like, oh, here's the stage. And I look back at my
Totally.
awkward, I thought I was so cool,
Oh my God.
when I look back at my awkward stages and I'm like, what was I thinking? And I'm like, gosh, my parents really just let me like play it out. They let me do it and experiment with
Yeah.
I shaved my head. I was like, doing all kinds of wearing crazy clothes and I looked
Yeah.
nuts, but it's good.
Yeah. I look back at pictures and I'm like, wow, I did that. Or like, oh, I was really wearing tutus and combat boots to work. Okay. Like they
Totally.
just let
Great.
me
I
do
love
it.
that. Right.
Great. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, I'm always going to love that look. Like whenever that becomes a thing again, like I'm ready to go.
Totally.
Uh, let's talk a little bit about like opening your own space. I mean, you came to LA and one thing
Okay.
I've seen people say about you that I think is awesome is like if you're like a New York person and you're looking for like an actual haircut, go see Kate. And I think that there is something really specific about that. But what was the impetus for you opening your own space, Lost Hills, here in LA?
Yeah. So when I first moved here, when I was in New York still, I should start out with, I shared a really cool little art space with a few of my friends, um, Eric Hauk and Jordan M. And we would just do haircuts in there and kind of get, um, you know, all of our inspiration and our muses. That's kind of where we would cut everybody's hair. So when I first moved here, I tried to work in a salon and it was just so different in LA for me. And I felt awkward and I'm kind of being an uncomfortable, shy person. And I just never felt like I found the place. So I just thought, let's just find some space, like kind of like that place on Christie Street. And I'll just start putting a chair in there and start cutting people's hair. And I never really imagined myself owning a salon or it really becoming what it is now, 10 years, almost 10 years later. So I guess I just needed a space where I felt safe, where I wanted my clients to feel safe, where people could kind of come together at that time too. So many people were kind of moving here from New York. And yeah, we would have lots of art openings and parties. And I just wanted to have a community space in a way. Like my dream
Yeah,
would have been at the time, I was like, I want like an old church or something where I can like bring the community together.
I love
But
that.
yeah, but then I found
Yeah.
where I am now and I love it and I'll never, I'll never leave
Yes.
it if I
It's such a
can.
special space. I mean, like anybody who's listening, if you live in LA, you should go see Kate. For one, your hair is going to look way better than it did when you walked in, but also like
Thank
this
you.
space that you've curated just feels so special. There's really nothing that I've experienced like it in LA. It feels New York, but it feels different. It feels like really beautiful. It has somehow tons of light in there. And then you realize you're like in this kind of warehousey space. It's very, very cool. And you'd almost never know it was
Thank
there,
you.
which is hidden in plain sight is kind of such a special thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we are so hidden. And for a little bit, that was in the early days, I was like, I want a salon where it's like, I want a storefront. I want a storefront. eventually, and then the longer I was in there and hearing feedback from people loving it back there. And we're hidden. We're like in a basement. It's like you have to go through this like weird parking lot. But it is special. And I feel like every client kind of like, and every person that works there and comes through leaves like a little bit of their specialness, and you can really feel it in there. And I
Yeah.
really wanted a place where I could have a library of books, where we could do things other than cut hair. We can have photo shoots, or we can have an art show or karaoke party, things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, what's been for you kind of some of the bigger lessons of like having a space like that is a community space? You're also kind of inevitably a business owner with that too. And there's that side of it. So what has that been like for you to kind of go from working for someone to working really for yourself in that way?
I'm not going to lie, it was really hard for me, especially in the beginning. I didn't know how to like, and it took me a while to let go of Bumble. I would work for them and teach, and I would go back to New York every month for like 6 years because it was like this safety net.
Yeah.
And I finally had to let that go, because of the world changing and having a child. And then I had to own it, I really had to own it myself. And that was hard for me. I'm a creative mind. I'm not a business person. And I also
Yeah.
went through some, relationships with friends that didn't work out through this too, and now we are friends again, but you really grow and you learn and you find yourself and who you are
Yeah.
through this. And I feel proud, but I'm still learning every day. I'm still like, I'm not a business owner. I'll be like, it's not mine, but
Yeah,
it
you
is.
it's funny when I said that, you kind of made a face and then you were like, "Oh wait, yes, I am a business owner. Okay, I can answer this."
Yeah, yeah.
It's like very very candid. I mean, when have you grown? I mean, is this the moment like when you've grown the most in your life and like, really the cause of that growth? Because I just see you like you're growing through these moments. I mean, you touched on a lot of them. You were in London and then you were in San Francisco and then you were in New York. Those are all like growing through those moments. Then you come to LA and you finally let go of New York, which like I went through that too. It's so hard to like let
It's
it
so hard.
go. And I'm like, well, New York will always be there. And like that was a big one for me. But like what for you, if you had to like put a finger on it, what has been that biggest growth moment for you and what caused it?
Yeah, I feel like, well, one, having a child like really made me think like, oh, wow, I have to kind of grow up and I have to like leave something for him. And it's not just myself anymore. And also letting go of New York, I had to kind of let go of my old self and my past a little bit. Like for me, it was like I was always kind of holding on to that my New York times and my life there, but it was kind of like my younger self. Yeah, I mean, I guess like really like learning through trial and error too with the business end of it. And
Yeah.
I feel very lucky that for the past 5 years, I've had like this really stable group of stylists that are around me and I work with, and I really lean on them. And they're all really strong women that we all run our own little businesses out, inside this big business.
Yeah.
And I think that they've saved me. Like, I really can lean on them. I can talk to them. I can talk through it if I'm frustrated or if I'm confused or I don't understand. And whether that be like business stuff or hair stuff,
Yeah.
So I think having a mentor, and that kind of goes back to apprenticeship, it's like I always will go to my mentors and talk to them.
Yeah. And I think also like knowing like who you can call on that like you don't have to explain the context of the situation. Like people who get your industry, I think there is something really powerful about that where like I have people who work in the same space as me and like I can reach out without a ton of backstory and just be like, oh, I'm having this thing. Can I vent? And they're like, yes. And I don't have to say like, oh, okay, well, when you're coaching someone, it's this, and this. And they're like, start from the moment where you got mad, and I'm like, yep, let's go. And I think that somebody
Yeah.
who just gets your guts like that, who really understands like where you are is something that's so powerful. And like, I've realized how much I need that, especially like as I've grown in my career and been, in my own independent spaces, it's been really challenging. It's not like you're going into an office and you're like, hello, all my coworkers, like, let's talk about everything. Like you're in your own
Yeah.
space.
Right. Oh, yeah. And sometimes even at first, like working alone, I'd be like, it was hard for me because I'm always used to having that energy around me, and even just all the hairdressers around me, and this, and then I kind of went and I was by myself. And sometimes I still am, we have other people there, but yeah, it's good to have those people to call. Also, I feel so lucky because I have a really amazing partner that he's like the strength for me. And
Yeah.
I talk to him about everything, and he knows nothing about hair, but I'm just like, oh, and I can
Yeah.
really bounce things off of him. And yeah, I have really a great network of people. So I feel lucky.
Yeah. And I also think something about like having a partner, like when you become a parent with them, you're just like, whoa, we are
Yeah.
in new territory. Like, good thing you're
Yeah.
familiar because everything else is totally strange. And like, I think that was a huge thing for Dan and I too. Like, when we like becoming parents, it like, took our relationship to like a different place, which was like really special because it's like, okay, well, like I know you as like my, like my romantic partner. I know you as like my like really like my best friend, but also like now I get to see this other side of you as like a parent and like, oh yeah, like we're really good at that too because we are like the ultimate team. But no one ever preps you for like how much dividing and conquering there is in parenthood, like where
Oh yeah.
you're like, I've been around you all day, but I've literally not talked to you because we're just trying to
It's
like keep things afloat, right?
totally, yes,
Yeah.
100%. I'm like, oh yeah, you're here. How are you? It's
Yeah.
real. So we have to try to take those breaks with each other. Otherwise, we'll never have to have a conversation. But yeah, I feel so lucky. I mean, my husband stayed home with our son for the first almost 2 years of his life, so I
Wow.
could work. And for me, I think that it was kind of um, I mean, I wouldn't have changed it ever.
Yeah.
I'm somebody that is a workaholic. I love my
Me
career, my
too.
job, and I think some people asking me like, "Wow, how does that make you feel? Like, do you think that you're like missing out on some of these experiences with your son? Like, how can you just like, And no, for me, it's like he'll never know the true me, the true Kate, if I wasn't working and I wasn't doing this. So I also
Yeah.
am so thankful that Ben was able to stay home with him and kind of be the homemaker while I was at work.
That's amazing. I mean, it also like I grew up in a household where like my dad was often like Mr. Mom, if you will. Like he used to call himself.
That's awesome.
He'd say, "I'm Mr. Mom." But it was always like I think that while it's maybe not traditional, I think it's really assuring and I think that there's something really cool about that because like I also really I love working and having a career is really important to me. And I also want, Jordan to know that about me as his mom, like that I love working, like it's important to me. And also you're important to me, child. And like, so is, my husband and so is like my friendships and making time for all of that. But I don't think it has to be either or. And people are so obsessed with that, with parenting, especially
It's
with
true.
women. I feel like they're like,
Hmm.
expect you to like give up the ship. And so many people said to me, I remember throughout my pregnancy of like, you probably won't even want to go back to work. Like you'll be fine, or like, you should be glad you got laid off. That was a really new one for me because I got laid off right in the
Oh
beginning of
wow.
my pregnancy. They'd be like, you'll be really glad. Trust me, one day. I'm like, okay, you obviously don't know me because of what you're saying, but
Right.
also like, I don't really think that's how it works. And there's so much about your identity that shifts with becoming a parent that I
Hmm.
also feel like it's made me. And I had this conversation with someone a few weeks ago, Allison, who was on the show, but she was talking about how being a mom has like given her superpowers that we can like hold this amazing thing of like how we can multitask and how we can accomplish stuff because you just naturally become more efficient. Have you seen this reflected like into your spaces when you're working?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, definitely. I'm like, oh wow, I can really get things done, where I used to take so much more time for things. And also I feel like when I'm at work, maybe it's more like this is my space. I'm here, I'm working. You know, I know like Liam's at school, I know he's safe, and I can really focus on what I'm doing. And then on my
Yeah.
days off, they're really like my days away from work. And I think before maybe I would always kind of show up there or like take a client and da, 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 but it's kind of given me this separation that's been actually really good for my job. Like I think I'm a better stylist because of it.
Yeah.
Like with that focus and yeah, that multi, like, or that, not for me, I guess maybe it's not multitasking.
Yeah, like really like finding your focus and like really being able
Yeah,
to like, yeah. And I think that's really, it's like being really present with like what's in front of you and not thinking about all the places that you need to be or where you should be,
right.
like you said. And I think with him being in school, that's probably really amazing. It's just like he's able to like, he's learning and experiencing things that you couldn't do for him. Like that's because we're not educators, right? Like in that way. I mean, if he
Right.
wants to
Yeah.
learn haircuts, you're going to be like, let's go,
Right.
baby. Yeah.
Oh, he said something so funny to me. He was like, "Daddy, you don't know how to cut hair?" And Ben was like, "No, Liam, I don't know. Only mommy knows." And he goes, "But all you do is go snip, 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 cut, 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 spray, 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 comb, comb, comb." I was like, "Okay, thanks."
Wow,
So
reductive.
he
Yeah.
knows how to cut hair.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Imagine.
love that. I mean, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to move into the space of, being a stylist? They're interested in that. They're naturally attracted to it, but they're kind of like, I don't know where to start. Like, does where you go to school matter? Like, let's talk about all of it.
Oh yeah. Well, one, if anybody ever has any questions, they can always reach out to me. I really love like mentoring people, even if it's just like by email or text, any information. So just so anybody out there knows that, I'm always here for you. But I really think that I don't think that beauty school necessarily is important. I think that apprenticeship is important. And something really special in California is that you don't have to go to beauty school. You can just do an apprenticeship,
Hmm.
and get your hours that way. If you are going to go to a beauty school and you don't want to do an apprenticeship, I still say going somewhere like Sassoon is so great because you're going to get such a good foundation.
Yeah.
But definitely going to a salon, like if you're in New York City, like Bumble and Bumble to do an apprenticeship, or Sassoon, or somewhere where you're just going to see a lot of different clients, a lot of different hairstylists cutting a lot of different clients, and that you'll have mentors and people that have been there through all different generations. It's really
Yeah.
great. And you can, of course, you can do it on your own, like how I always had my own little studio no matter what. I was always cutting hair on the side, but then I was so dedicated to my apprenticeship, and I think it's priceless, and I want that to come back. I
Yeah,
really
I think
do.
it's amazing. I mean, and I even love, I didn't know that you had started something that was focused on like trade schools in high school, but I think that there's so much opportunity that isn't talked about when it comes to like what career paths you can follow. And like, I didn't go to college. Like, I don't think that college is necessarily the path to success, but I also think that people who feel like they don't know, why not just try? Why not just like, see if you like going to hair school, see if you enjoy apprenticeship. You can try it. There's no punishment for that.
Absolutely. You can reach out to a salon, like especially one of the major ones, and just say, "Can I shadow for the day? Can I just come in and see?" Or yeah, reaching out to different hairdressers on social media. Also, I work for a company called Pony Education, and they're pretty amazing. And they have an app and all of the online education, and they're also starting with their apprenticeship program online. I don't think that you can get your apprenticeship, but they're showing their apprenticeship program so you can learn from the very beginning. That's Karina at Pony. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
she's
she's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, I love that she's also just kind of taken that space of online content and been like, let's make like some real content that's really educational for people as opposed to just like seeing someone's Instagram highlight reel of like a haircut they did and, hyperlapse. It's like, yes, we've all seen that, but that doesn't teach the foundational education.
And she really has such an amazing app that like goes from everything that you can imagine, from styling to cutting to color. It's amazing, and I really do recommend every hairdresser have that. Just to check in. I watch people on there all the
Yeah.
time. But if you're interested in doing hair, I say give it a chance. It's an amazing career, and there's so many different ways that you can go. You can have your own salon. You can only do cut. You can do cut. You can do color. You can do editorial. There's so many options.
Yeah. And what do you think is really inspiring about right now? I mean, everyone's, going ballistic over the, Pat McGrath and everything with beauty and fashion right now. And from a makeup standpoint of just revolutionizing, is there anything that jumps out at you as like, I love like what what this company is doing or what this person is doing, that you see as like a beacon of like change and inspiration? Because there is a lot of sameness out there.
There is a lot of sameness. I will say I'm excited for my friend James Pescius. He just launched a company called Blue and Green, and it's going to be amazing. It's about clean beauty and about like getting rid of plastic. And I think that's kind of like a conversation that we all need to have here, no matter what industry we're in. But there is so much plastic from the beauty industry. And I think it's really great that James is doing that with these little tablets that you use to wash your hair instead of having plastic, because we do have children and we have to think about their future.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as like looks go, I always say like people need to, you know, I'm somebody that really feels that you got to give yourself a haircut or a look that looks good on you. Doesn't matter what's happening in the trends.
Yeah, totally. I'm
But I
sure
have been
people do
cutting a
it.
lot
They
of hair
come
off.
in. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
coming in with like a picture and you're like, okay, well, just so we're both aligned, you know that you don't look exactly like this model you're showing me, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But you
I
said
mean, I
you're
do
cutting
love
hair off.
references. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've
Okay.
been cutting a lot of hair off, a lot of little bobs, a lot of bangs, cute bangs, baby bangs. It's been so fun. I think that people still after, it's been all this time after we were all at home, but people are still wanting to get their hair off. It's really great.
Yeah. During the pandemic, did you see a lot of your clients resort to cutting their own hair, or how did they get through that when, presumably they couldn't come to you, for their regular every 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, for a haircut?
Yeah, I got a lot of like, will you help me cut my hair on Zoom? And I was like, no, I don't know. No, I can't do
This
that.
seems
I'm sorry.
risky. You're just having a
That's
flashback
not
to the
my,
uneven haircut
yeah,
from back in the day. Yeah.
no. Yeah, most of my clients were cutting their own hair or just letting it grow,
Yeah.
or their partners were cutting their hair for them.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. And I got a lot of, wow, Kate, your job is really hard. I didn't know that what you did actually, wow, it is hard. So that was kind of nice to hear a little bit. Like it's not just,
Respect.
yeah.
Yeah, my respect for, I mean, I already had respect because I had been in the, space with hair for a long time, like early in my career. But what really got me was like my nails. Like I know how hard it
Oh,
is, but like I can't even like a pedicure, like I can't do any of it. And I just like, that was really my struggle was like, okay, well, they're obviously going to get cut short and they're going to be shapeless and ugly. And like, when can I crawl back into that chair, please?
totally. I know that's actually been the toughest thing for me with having a child too, is my nails and the time that I don't have to get them done. I'm like, oh, nails, nail techs, I give them so much credit. There's nothing
Yeah.
like it.
Totally. Although I will say Dan did double process my hair back when my hair was bleach blonde during the pandemic, and he did okay. I'll say like
He did.
6 out of 10. Yeah, he was
I
like,
love
"This is
it.
really hard." There was a big patch he missed in the back. Yeah, we'll not get it twisted. It was not
Oh,
perfect, but
it is really hard, especially a bleach and tone. A bleach and tone looks so simple, and it really is so hard. I was a bleach and tone for many years, so
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, respect
credit to
to
him.
the colorist who can make that happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, your hair care brand. I mean, I'm so excited that you founded your own line. That's coming soon. Is that 2024? What's our timeline?
Yeah, that's 2024. It should be soon. I'm making a
Congrats.
mill. Thank you so much. I'm just going to be making like a small, just like right now, it's going to be one or I think I have two for sure. A balm and like a hair cream. It's called TOSL, but it's spelled TSOL, which is
Oh, I
lost
love that.
backwards. And so,
Oh my gosh, totally.
yeah, so it's, yeah, a little play on words there. But it's something that I've been thinking about for many, many years and kind of was like, do we need to have more products out there? I don't know. But I wanted something that I cut with product in the hair always. And I
Hmm.
wanted something that was really smells really nice, smells expensive and good, and it works and it does what I need it to do in the hair as I cut, and also can dry really nice and naturally into the hair. And I want it to be a really reasonable price point. So I want it to be for everybody. And it's just going to be very small batch. Like
Mm.
I want it to be, I'm going to send it to all of my hair friends out there and put it in their salons, but I'm not trying to make some crazy huge like brand, just starting
Yeah.
small. Like I did with the salon, it's like I like a word of mouth moment. It's really important to me. I want people to really see how they're loving it, and then they share it with their friends. And that's kind of how I've always ran my business.
That's amazing. And also, I mean, it's no small undertaking to create a product line. I mean, what was the process like for you, with iteration and, especially when you are creating something that you'll be working with? I'm sure you had a really specific idea, but it wasn't like from zero to idea overnight. I mean, how many iterations of the product, did you work through while working with the lab?
Yeah, this is probably actually, I'm working with this really great lab, and I have a friend that's helping me as well. Her name's Christina, and my husband also is helping me. And this is only my third one, and I love
Wow.
it. So
Okay.
actually, the first one that he made for me, I love, and that's why I'm like, I guess I'm going to have two products because I loved it, but it wasn't what I was expecting to
Okay.
want.
Oh my gosh, the mystery.
I know, I feel very, I feel very lucky. Everybody that's been smelling it is like, what is that smell? It smells so good. I think I've been thinking about it for so long that once I was ready and I had this friend of mine, Christina, to like be like this liaison for me and take my jumbled up words
Yeah.
and thoughts and translate that to the lab. She was so amazing, and she did a good job at telling them what I needed. And so I feel like that's why it came back so good.
That's so
Yes.
special too, just to like see something. I mean, you're kind of birthing another thing, right? Like you're seeing this thing that you hoped for and dreamt of, like, can this be real? And then here it is. And so when can people expect to get their paws on TOSL?
I think it's going to be in the next 3 months.
Oh my
So
gosh. Okay.
yeah, it's
So
really going to be
exciting.
soon. Yes. And, what you just said, I really never thought that I could do it. It's always been something like, well, I can never do that. I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. And then I'm like, why can't I do that? No, I can. It's just like, that's why I think having these people and these around you that you really trust and can work with and can understand a creative brain are just
Yes.
so important for us to have around because without this friend and my husband, I don't think that I could have done it.
I mean, that's also incredible just to speak to the people around you who see that, in you. And it's so helpful to have that reminder when we are in those moments where you're sort of like, can I do this thing? I don't think I could do it. They're like, shut up, Kate, let's do it.
Yeah,
Like
totally. And I need that.
yeah, don't we all? Like, we all need that thing where
Yeah,
someone's
we
like,
do
okay,
it.
you've been noodling on this for how many years now? Like, just make it
Yeah.
happen, and like,
Just make it happen. And that's
yeah.
why I feel so lucky. Like she was like, just don't even no, just tell me what it is. What do you want? What do you need? What is it? Tell me what kind of smells. What scents do you love? What don't you love? What products do you like? What don't you products you don't like? Like, it was really important for me to not have plastic, those kinds of things. Just keeping it, I'm going to have glass and refillable stuff
Oh,
like that. So
cool. It sounds like it's going to
yeah,
look expensive too, which I love that you
it's
talked
going to
about
look expensive
yeah,
and
but
chic.
the accessible price point, which we all, like I love when new products come out. I'm always happy to try new things, but I feel like so often it's like $70 for a lipstick. Like, wait, what world are we living in?
No, I don't
Yeah.
like it. And it's not, and that's something too that I will always bring back to my salon. I mean, I feel like my price point for a haircut, I'm never going to be an out. People ask me that, I charge 160 and I think that's like very reasonable. Of many people charge a lot more. And I also do have like a kind of a hidden sliding scale for people that can't afford a haircut. If somebody, reaches out to me, I always will cut their hair.
But
I
you
just
just
want
you give them whatever you
beauty.
want, right? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're like, well,
Yeah.
I get to pick,
Well,
so.
actually, I'm going to give you a teeny tiny little shaved. No. Yes, yes, they do. But I think that it's just having, that beauty and product accessible to everybody is so important.
I really love that too. I think that's so special. And my own like twisted humor had to like make a joke in the moment, but you said something really beautiful about just like you just want to see beauty. And I think that that is like really important, that that shouldn't be based on a price point or having access. Like, and it's even something that we spoke about booking. There's like this pomp and circumstance that certain stylists have, which they're not really doing anything revolutionary in terms of like having a haircut, but it's like I've sat in chairs with some really amazing, hairstylists who had zero ego, and yourself very much included in that, about like booking and getting in with you. It wasn't like, oh yes, I have a 6-month wait list and hopefully we can accommodate, or like, oh, I don't know that Kate is taking, new clients. I'm like, well, aren't I talking to Kate? It's like, I definitely had
Right.
that experience with certain places.
Totally.
And, I also had, I went to David Mallet when I was in Paris, and like, he's super well known, and this was like a few years ago, and I was there and I was like, I wonder if I could just like book a haircut with him. And he's like, well, why wouldn't you be able to? I own a salon and I'm
Right.
working. And I just thought like,
Right.
oh, thank goodness that there's people
There you
who
go.
are like open.
It's like I can't close off myself, because otherwise, again, I go back to like I'm always trying to grow and learn, and I love meeting new people. And yeah, I think a lot of stylists don't want to take a new client, one, because they're busy, and two, because it is harder. You do have to like go through the whole like getting to know the person and trying to figure out what they want. Da, 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 da. But I love that too. And for me, it's like, if you can book an appointment, you can take the appointment. And if you're my client, you know me, you have my info, you text me, call me, and I'll always leaving some wiggle room in for people. But I also have that punk background, those punk roots, and where I grew up in Olympia, nobody wanted capitalism, and it's like people are doing things for
Yeah.
trade, and like these kids, they don't have money, but they're like creating stuff, and money shouldn't. I mean, let's not, let's be honest. I would love to have tons of money and everything, but I
Sure.
also want everybody to be able to express themselves, and I'm here for it. So,
Yeah.
it's like I cut people from like celebrities to like little punk kids, or like, old people and young people. I want, that's how I keep my day alive too. It's like my day starts out with this one person and ends with somebody like a way different person.
Yeah. That's amazing too. And thinking about like, yeah, having punk roots and having like people, that's also like where style is coming from more often than not. It's like these big brands are often looking at, what are they calling Times Square in New York now? But like they're
Oh
going to
yeah,
these places like, where are the cool kids? Like who's doing what? What are they wearing? How are they dressing? Like what are they listening to? That is like oftentimes the pulse of that culture. Like, Massaer, who I had on the show, said like the youth will always win. And I thought like, wow, what a poignant way to,
absolutely.
say that. It's like the youth are always going to be controlling what we're interested in terms of style and function. And at some point, chasing relevancy is just like, you can't do that. That's why you have to find what works for you. Like you said, with a haircut, with anything. But why not get those inspiring, like cool young kids who maybe don't have tons of money, but they want like they have an idea, they have a direction and an aesthetic. Like, why not complement that?
Oh, absolutely. I love those kids that I cut. And some of them, honestly, have grown. Like when I first got here 10 years ago, and I was cutting these like, barely 20-year-olds, artists, really cool. Like, but yeah, like barely surviving. And 10 years later, I've seen them really go and survive and become these like incredible artists, or famous designers, or all these different kinds of things. So you also just never know what that relationship is going to evolve to.
Yeah.
So
Like you never know who's sitting in your chair, and like what an incredible gift to like get to greet each day with like, okay, who's going to be here? Like this person is going to challenge how I think about this, or this person's going to inspire me, or like maybe they have something new, or I get to meet somebody. Like it's hard to meet people, so that's a gift.
it's hard to read people. Yeah,
It is. I feel
totally.
like the older you get, like the harder it is like to find your community, your people. So I always get really excited when I meet someone and I'm like, oh my God, we like totally vibe. Like, this is great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally like, oh yeah, I like you. That's
I like you. Yeah. And it's like a scary, like, should I like ask you on like a friend date to get coffee? It's like, yeah, it's just like ask the person because like you just never know. Or like my
Oh,
getting
you have
coffee
to.
is like, come on my podcast, become my friend.
Right.
Yeah. Couple questions in closing. I mean, where can people go to learn more about you and your work? Where can they book with you? What would you like to
Okay,
share?
yeah. LostHillsLA.com, and you can book with me. And there's also my email on there. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Hairdressers out there that are starting out or not a hairdresser yet, and you have any questions, I would love to answer them for you. So please just email me. And if I don't respond, you just got to email me again because I'm
Yeah.
not the best with the old phone. But yeah, you can book with me there. And if you ever don't see an appointment, you can reach out. And then I'll be sharing TOSL soon. It's going to be coming out like little by little.
Oh my
So
gosh. I love it. Maybe a special opening party in LA. That's what I'm voting for.
oh
And
yeah, okay, there
that'll
we go.
be,
Done. We're
yeah,
having a party in LA.
we're having a party. And also like on your Instagram, you post really like beautiful images on Lost Hills LA on Instagram as well. So we'll put that in the show notes for sure.
Thank you so
Of
much. I appreciate
course.
it.
Yeah. Kate, what is one final thought you want to leave our listeners with today? I feel like we covered off on so much about mentorship and growth in the industry and everything, but what's one final thought? It could be anything.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. This is the first time I've ever done any kind of a podcast, and I appreciate it. So thank you. And I
My
guess my
pleasure.
final thought is yeah, let's bring apprenticeships back. Let's bring
Hell
those
yeah.
mentorships back. Yeah.
Yes. And if
Cool.
you're out there and you're curious about an apprenticeship, just email Kate. Just email Kate. I'm
Yeah,
just going
just
to tell
email
them
me.
to. Yeah, why not? Just email
Just tell
Kate.
them to
Yeah.
email me.
It'll be
Yeah.
perfect. Oh my gosh, Kate, this has been so special. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
has been really, really great. And I just appreciate you so much. So lots to look forward to in 2024. And yeah, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Don't Fuck This Up is a podcast written, produced, and edited by Lauren Alvarez. New episodes dropping every Wednesday. Be sure to follow, rate, and review this and every episode. And until next week, please keep it together and try your best not to fuck this up.